Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters by Anfield Index. It wasn't exactly the performance everyone was looking for in the half against Wolves. However, 3 points, no injuries. That's all that matters as the Reds basically keep the gap and everything else the same in this one. Here to join me as ever to talk about everything on the field and a few things off it at the same time is the renowned and the respected David Lynch. Now, David, I kind of almost want to go to the end before doing the beginning and the middle now that we've talked about it. I mean, now that the dust has settled fully on this one, there was a bit of trepidation. There was a bit of maybe fear or sense of worry in the Anfield atmosphere yesterday. But the gap is still 7 points, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's got to be kind of the main takeaway from this. I know there's a lot of concerns during the match and a few concerns after the match, but I just think, obviously when you're analysing the games and you're analysing performance and what it means to title chances, and Arne Slot will work in the same way, you've got to be kind of led by performances rather than outcomes 90% of the time. So, if Liverpool win the first 5 games of the season, but they play terribly, they give up a load of shots in all of them, you know what's coming. That's how it always works. So you've got to drag yourself out of the outcomes. That said, and I would always, in the way that I kind of, kind of the way I look at football is always kind of on the performance basis, and I always tend to judge on that. But if you're in a title race and it's at this point in the season, you're 7 points ahead, you've got an unbelievable schedule that you're in at the moment, then sometimes you do need to win ugly, and you need to just scrap them out somehow. And I think Liverpool did that in the end yesterday, and that was the kind of, there's not a lot of positive feeling to take away about the performance, I think, but it was all about get 7 points clear, try not pick up any more injuries. And he did that in the end, and he showed some really good battling qualities. I mean, you look at the Everton game, and unfortunate not to hang on for that one, and you'd be say 2 great battling wins back to back. Unfortunately, it was just 1, but 4 points looks a lot better than 0, doesn't it? So I think it's one of those in a rare situation where I am kind of happy to write off the performance. I think Arne Slot struck a similar note in his post-match press conference, and you just take the 3 points and move on, because there's some big tests coming up where Liverpool will need to perform better, but I also expect that they will as well.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. That was almost a tone of his post-match press conference, and a 7 point gap. And funnily enough, in the last 5 games, Arsenal have taken points, but as you can see from the form guide there, guess who else has taken 13 points at exactly the same time? So everything stays as it was. But it is right to hear from Arne Slot about this game. And you could sense almost maybe not relief, but the bit of analysis that was coming through. I want to talk about.
People always feel like, you've got Mo Salah, what are you talking about? He will always go for you. And no. It's so difficult to win a game of football every 3 days. After everything you go through in a season, so that's why this win is an important one going into a very tough week where we hope we can show the same mentality again in both teams, but play a bit better on the ball.
Yeah, a game every 3 days. There was a bit of a contrast there, and being honest, David, there was no bigger contrast than a relaxed first half where it seemed cruise control, didn't it? Totally dominant. I don't even know what you're going to describe the second half as I throw this load of gun to you realistically.
Yeah, it was like the Alamo, really, wasn't it? It was just, I've never seen Liverpool on the back foot that much in an Anfield game against anyone, never mind the team that starts today in kind of 17th in the Premier League. It was, it felt a little bit like it came out of nowhere, though. That said, actually, a few moments in the first half, I was a little bit like, Wolves are kind of a couple of passes away there from absolutely playing through you. Yeah. A couple of last-ditch moments where Liverpool get there, and obviously they keep them kind of down for shot to XG in the first half. But, I think Liverpool get their noses in front in a kind of, in the what was happening in the middle of the pitch. It felt kind of even to me at times, and that's why I was kind of glad that they did go in at half-time 2-0 up, because I thought they've not been absolutely perfect here, and Wolves have shown a bit of threat. That said, I didn't expect the second half to go anything like it did. I mean, I couldn't believe quite how dominant Wolves are. I mean, 10 shots to nil, 1 expected goal to nil. They were dominant in that second half completely and deserved the goal and possibly could have come away deserving a point. So it was an incredible contrast recently. An incredible contrast between the two things. But I do wonder whether part of that as well is generated by the game state. Part of it's generated by the fact that Liverpool have got one eye on what's to come. They know this is the fixture where it's not as big a game as the other ones that are coming up this week. And I also think you could tell as well that there was a real Wolves had a free week in the build up to this game, whereas Liverpool had been through the ringer at Goodison Park. That for me really told in that second half in particular. And so the beauty of that is if you get yourself into a position where you're 2-0, you've got a little bit of leeway to work with. And I'm sure Arne Slot will want Liverpool to play better in the games that are coming up. In those moments, even if they do get themselves 2-0 ahead. But I think he'll accept that there's several mitigating circumstances around it, and therefore he'd probably find it a little bit easier to write off the performance in the second half than he would be in usual circumstances.
I wanted to ask you as well about the atmosphere, because you're naturally at the game yesterday. It was I might be wrong on this, but it was the first time I can remember seeing after the game, Arne Slot applauding the clock, but almost giving the arms up as though we need more a little bit. And you saw Andy Robertson gesticulating a couple of times as well. Do you think it was just a sense of those things you mentioned, that tension, maybe a bit of PTSD from obviously the City run-ins and all that, but there was nerves in that stadium yesterday, wasn't there?
Yeah, but I also think understandably so, because this was, like I said, it's the kindest fixture Liverpool have in this run, and they were making a bit of a pig's ear of it, to be honest. They were really struggling. So I understand that nervousness. I don't think as well, and this is an underrated element, doesn't necessarily help the atmosphere when it's freezing. And it was so cold at Anfield yesterday. I honestly do think that has effect. It sounds silly to say it, but it's genuinely true, and it is an underrated aspect to these things sometimes that can have an effect on the atmosphere. And I understand why people were nervous. It was supposed to be an easier game. Liverpool were struggling at times, and you start thinking, oh well, if we drop points here, we've dropped points at Goodison Park, we've got this horrible run coming up.
Yeah,
it's completely understandable. And it's kind of funny actually with the Andy Robertson thing. I saw him trying to get gestures to the cop. He also kind of glared at them in a moment where he took one of the worst free kicks imaginable at one point. He got lucky that they won a throw-in off the back of it, and then turned around and glared at the cop like, well, that was what I was trying to do. It's like, nah, I'm not sure about that, mate. I wasn't kind of entirely sure about all that. But yeah, I understand why the fans felt in that way, and I am slightly more sympathetic to it than they usually would be. And I think, in the slightly bigger games, I don't think they will be like that. And I also think Liverpool will generally perform better than they did as well. So I'm not too worried about that. And I think it's quite unfair actually that some of the stuff that's being directed at the crowd as if they're kind of there to be part of the fun. You know what it's like yourself when you're part of that crowd. It works together. It works with the performance, and they feed off each other. And maybe the performance wasn't there to feed off yesterday, and that made it a little bit more difficult for them. So, I don't buy into that as much, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, in the sense that Red Armchair Supporter makes a good comment there. I feel possibly subconsciously we took the foot off the pedal when 2-0 up and cruising. Maybe that's true of both the players a little bit and the crowd a little bit. It did have a sense that this is done at half-time possibly, but as is the nature of the Premier League, it just that all the teams, even near the bottom, have got threats or are good. But it is worth talking about our players specifically. And one player I did want to sort of put to you first of all, Luis Diaz. It's not been sort of the best of recent times since the turn of the year. People have noted the dry up hit in goals and assists. But yesterday, maybe a lucky element to the finish, but wins the penalty as well. Real contribution with Cody Gakpo out there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably no surprise that he gets a goal as soon as he's restored to that left wing position. I mean, we know that the centre forward in this team just doesn't generally tend to get shots, really. And so, I probably don't think it's a coincidence he gets put back out there and delivers. So, yeah, good for him, because I think some of the criticism of him has been way over the top, to be honest. I think he's been doing a job for Liverpool in that central role and doing a decent job as well. So, it was good to see him put in a more kind of natural position. And then, of course, he gets the goal. He wins a penalty. So he's absolutely crucial to Liverpool getting over the line in that one. And that's a good reward, really, for everything he's put in a bit of a thankless task, which is his role in when he's a centre forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we need them all contributing. And there's a comment put in here that I was kind of thinking to. They probably put it better than I was thinking it in my mind. It says here, David, when do you see Chiesa getting game time in the upcoming fixtures till March? Salah has looked extremely fatigued over the past few games. I wouldn't necessarily say about the Salah bit, because he's still banging in goals pretty much every game. But I do wonder about, and I want to talk about the second string in a bit, but the alternative forward options, maybe Chiesa, even Harvey Elliott. It just seems that Slot is very fixed in this, who's going to play certain positions. Is the worry for you about fatigue, or it catches up eventually using the same players again and again?
To be honest, not really. I mean, I get this comment a lot on YouTube, what's happening with Chiesa, where's Chiesa? I honestly can't really understand why anyone's bothered, to be honest. He's very, very low down the pecking order at the moment. Liverpool are not struggling for goals, are they? I mean, how many consecutive Anfield games is that now with 2 goals scored? They scored 2 at Everton. So again, attack wasn't the problem. And I don't really agree with the take that Salah's fatigued at all, to be honest. I think he's looked as sharp as ever. Again, denied an open play goal with a marginal offside. He gets the assist kind of for Diaz here. He scores a penalty. And I thought looked really dangerous throughout the game. So I don't understand the desperation to get Chiesa on the pitch, because you surely want to be throwing him in if things were kind of going wrong, but I just don't think they are at the moment, and he's just not that far up the pecking order to be causing any disruption there. So you've got Jota back in that centre forward role, who I think did an okay job. Salah's absolutely flying. You've got Gakpo on that left hand side, and then obviously Diaz can play there. Nunes has had some decent performances recently as well. So I honestly don't get it, and I don't think we'll see very much of him, to be honest, between now and the end of the season, because there probably won't be any need to be honest. Unless maybe Liverpool are cruising in a game, and if they'd got 3-0 yesterday, maybe we would have seen a bit of Chiesa, but obviously that didn't happen, and I just think while there's no need for him, there's no kind of desperation to get him on the pitch, really.
Yeah, I can get that. And to be fair, if you look at the goal contribution from the top 5 there, it's the other forwards, isn't it, in terms of goal contributions? They're all having a huge impact. And it really is good to see Luis Diaz starting to make an impact again. And we talked about alternates there. By the way, the second string had a real impact yesterday. And he only got, just say, 20-odd minutes on the pitch. And this is quite almost, I think, a suggestion of the character of Endo, that if we just listen to a small clip from his post-match interview, quiet and unassuming. Let's just listen to what he said here.
Well done. It was nervous towards the end, but you all contributed to another 3 points.
Yeah. I'm so happy to get 3 points. So it was a very tough game in the end, but we need to show to fight until the end, and I think we showed it. So good 3 points. Yeah.
It was so dominant first half, but sometimes 2-0 can be a dangerous scoreline, and it still offers them some hope.
Yeah, we have got solid goal, but it was offside, and we got penalty, but it's not allowed.
I mean, he's quiet, he's unassuming, David, but for 20 minutes, the gum shield comes in, and he has an impact on this game, doesn't he?
Yeah, I thought he was absolutely fantastic when he came on. I mean, I saw a couple of people criticising for the foul he gives away on the edge of the box, but I actually think that was a foul the other way. I think he was very unlucky in that situation. And if he rightly gets the foul in that one, then you just can't take away from the fact it was just a brilliant performance when he comes on. I mean, he only makes 5 passes, but he only attempts 5 passes as well. So he keeps the ball every time he gets it. He's getting in there, winning the ball, winning his duels. He wins fouls, some couple of key fouls that he does win in big moments. And just the intelligence to get across his man and always be there in the right spot at the right time. I mean, it's telling to me that the Wolves have 10 shots in the second half and only one of those comes after Wataru Endo comes onto the pitch. And in fact, that one shot that they do have while he's on the pitch is from outside the box. So they're just trying pot shots, really. So that for me kind of says everything about the impact he had on the game. And he really did solidify Liverpool. And it was, you know, as much as he was brilliant as well, I want to credit the manager for seeing that and thinking that was a really smart move to stick him in there and appreciating his qualities. And I do wonder if he just kind of has that niggling thing in the back of his mind that, you know, he would have been pretty useful at Goodison Park, because I think he would have. So it's a shame he didn't come on in that game. But he was just absolutely massively important to what Liverpool did in the end, and got them over the line.
Yeah, played a huge part, no two ways about it. And the other player who actually came on at half time, because it was understandable with the risk that Konate might pick up a second yellow the way it was going, Jarell Quansah, second half. He also has a big impact, and you can't take away from that moment where Robertson dropped too deep and he just gets across with the block. He made some big decisions in the second half, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely superb. Again, a kind of a player I don't understand why there's been this rush to write him off. So many people don't seemingly want to give him any minutes and want to get him out the side as soon as possible and want to bring in a centre-half who will eat up all his minutes. I just don't understand that. I mean, there probably will be change at centre-half for Liverpool this summer because Joe Gomez will leave. And if you can get someone who is a little bit more robust, picks up fewer injuries, that would be a massive help for Liverpool. But I don't understand the idea that you bring in 5 so that Jarell Quansah never takes to the pitch, because I think he's a phenomenal talent. And he had a little bit of a rough spot in this season, as the manager alluded to post-match, but he's come roaring out of that. And, you know, he's learned, as all good young players do. And I thought when he came on yesterday, he was phenomenal. I mean, he doesn't give the ball away once, does he? 27 out of 27 passes, is it? A couple of absolutely crucial interceptions. I mean, not just that one where the ball's getting crossed in low and he gets there brilliantly, but there's another one where the ball's going in behind and he just gets a long leg out to stop it. I thought he was absolutely fantastic, and that was such a tough environment for him to come into as well. You know, it's not like he's replacing Ibrahim Konate with Liverpool 4-0 up and cruising for the rest of the game, because they were up against it in that second half. So yeah, absolutely fantastic to see him doing well again, and great to see the manager praising him as well, because that to me shows that he is going to be part of his plans again going forward next season, and we're going to continue seeing that growth, because I think there's a fantastic young player there.
It's a funny one, and even Muller's 27 there saying we should have got a centre back in January. I tweeted after this game, like, the reaction on Jarell Quansah across the board needs to stop. When he plays a brilliant game, he's not prime Maldini. When he does make a few mistakes so it doesn't go perfect, that doesn't mean he's finished, or the other things that people say. Is it standard that centre half is going to have ups and downs as he's still learning the game? And he's also in that position where if you do make a mistake, like keeper, it just tends to get punished, or it'll lead to a chance, won't it? There almost seems an over-analysis a bit on Quansah at the moment.
Yeah, I think what annoys me about it, or frustrates me, is really that there's sort of this desperation to blame him for everything as well, and I hate to see people saying that he's played poorly when I don't think he has. For example, he was part of that Plymouth game, wasn't he, where Liverpool in general were absolutely dreadful. But I thought Quansah had a good game, and yet for some reason I have to read about him on social media being terrible and this, that, and the other. And I just think people, watch the game through your eyes. Don't watch it through your kind of preconceived notions about who you've been told is good or not, or who may have a good rating on FIFA or whatever. Maybe that's it. Maybe he doesn't stack up particularly high on computer games or whatever, because it's definitely not being judged by what he's actually doing. Because I think, as the manager said himself, that, in recent kind of weeks, we've seen a real improvement for him. And I thought Plymouth, he was very good. I thought the Lille game when he came in, he was outstanding in that as well. And yesterday when he came on, he did really well again. So I think he's a massive young player, and I just think he's got a big future, and I think the manager sees that as well. And just to the comments as well about the centre half signing, if we'd signed someone in January there at centre half, where to sit on the bench, because that's what they would have been doing yesterday. Quansah would have been ahead of them in the pecking order, and if not, if they would have been ahead of Quansah in the pecking order, then we're never seeing Quansah again, and you might as well sell him because he's not going to want to never play any minutes. So this idea that Liverpool are going to carry 5 centre halves, unless it's someone who's extremely flexible and they don't sign a fullback or something like that, I just can't see it happening in a million years. So I think people need to get used to the idea that Liverpool are going to carry 4 because they only use 2 at a time. Quansah is going to be one of those because he's a very, very good young player. And I think any January signing in defence would still be just sat on the bench now watching the games.
Yeah, we talked about it. I would love, as you know, Hato from Ajax, but even if we'd signed him in January, it probably would have still been best in his development to do a Naby Keita one and stay at Ajax, get game time rather than just sit on the bench there.
Yeah.
And the comments are coming in as well.
Sorry, just to come in on that. I don't think that anyone, Jarell Hato as well, there's no way he is currently better than Jarell Quansah at the moment. If he got thrown into this league now, he would have to have a serious kind of adaptation process and really get used to what it was all about. And so, you've got to bear that in mind as well. I think people think because these are the glamorous new signings that they'll come in and they'll instantly be there and at the level. Lenny Yoro's an excellent young player, but you look at, he's been thrown in at Manchester United and found it really, really difficult. So, and he's another one who everybody on Twitter would have signed over the summer and would have pushed ahead of Jarell Quansah in the pecking order and pushed him down, not giving him any minutes. And has he looked any better than Quansah in the Premier League? I would say absolutely not, to be honest. No. So, I think there should be kind of a better understanding of what Quansah's level is, and the Liverpool have got real talent on their hands. Yeah,
and LFC SG there saying the criticism he gets is ridiculous. Yeah, what was Van Dijk doing 21 years of age? He needs years to reach his peak. Yeah, you've got to give him some leeway on that. I know it is a title race, but if he comes in, you've got to back him in that regard. And Sai Gopal there saying, I think Slot should trust Endo more to see out games. Reckon we could have 4 more points, as you said, than he'd been brought off at Everton at Newcastle. To almost finish this game, is the big thing we sort of took from yesterday that actually, when we talk about the second string, if you want, like the Endo, the Quansahs, even the Conor Bradley who comes on and does quite well from Trent, even if they don't necessarily start every game, they can still have, we've got a good squad, haven't they? Can still have an impact at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, again, kind of people have pushed back on the idea that, I would consistently say Liverpool have got the strongest squad in the Premier League. And that doesn't mean that you can leave your entire first team at home and go to Plymouth and win. It doesn't necessarily mean that. What it means is that you've got the likes of Endo to come in and look really, really good, and Jarell Quansah to come in when you're worrying about Canate being on the second yellow and play well, and Conor Bradley can come in for Trent Alexander-Arnold and completely lock down his flank. Liverpool have got unbelievable strength and depth, really, and I think again, that was a game that really showed it yesterday. And although these players, a lot of them, they're going to miss out on a few starts, aren't they now, because there isn't that FA Cup involvement in. Obviously, the League Cup now is only 1 game left, so they're going to struggle for minutes. But if they can come on and play a role in the latter parts of games, they can give people rests. We can see a little bit more of Chiesa even to come in for a Salah. Then that's all massively helpful. And I thought it was really underlined yesterday how strong Liverpool's squad is.
Yeah, good. It was good for the second string and good to see them get their flowers, so to speak, on that. So it is a positive, no two ways about it. And there was a stat that came out yesterday. There we go. 60. Liverpool have won 60 points in 25 Premier League matches under Arne Slot. The only manager in the competition's history to win more points in his first 25 matches is Jose Mourinho. And maybe, just maybe, he was trying to, emulate Jose a little bit, because he has been charged now by the FA, and obviously we're waiting to see on, I think it's the 19th of February, Wednesday. We'll probably get more info when they've got to hear these charges. Liverpool, have got to respond to these charges. Are you expecting a couple of match touchline ban to be coming up, David, in all honesty?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, to be honest, just on the way that Slot's spoken about it. He obviously wouldn't tell us any details about exactly what was said, and that was the same in the breakout as well. He kind of wanted to keep the details of it to himself, but it seemed to suggest to me that there was an element of contrition there and maybe an acknowledgement that he'd done wrong. So, I wonder what that's going to be, and maybe we'll learn a bit more when the FA charge comes out, and whether he accepts it as well will be key, or whether he'll push back. We'll have to see what happens with that. But yeah, it's he didn't seem like someone who didn't believe he'd done anything wrong and was going to completely contest it just from his demeanor. So we'll have to see. And yeah, maybe a touchline ban is incoming. But obviously, this process can drag on for a little bit as well.
Yeah, it might not be even decided by the City game, so we'll have to wait and see on that. And then something that broke this morning, I know you will have seen it, I know you retweeted it. Liverpool are freezing general admission and season ticket prices for 25-26, which is a huge thanks to the like of SOS, the supporters board. Shout out to Harinder from AI who sits on that as well. This, in terms of everything that happens around Liverpool, some people will maybe dismiss it, but this is good news because Liverpool don't, contrary to belief, do they massively rely on the ticket money. It's other sources. And actually, to give this back to fans, so to speak, it is a big positive, isn't it?
Yeah, for them, it really is. And when you consider broadcast revenue and everything else, other income streams, ticketing it's a real drop in the ocean, to be honest. So there's never any need for those little, even if it's £1 increase on a ticket or whatever. It just doesn't add up to much in terms of what it pays for in wages or anything like that. So there was never any need to push ticket prices up. So things like this are always welcome. And at the end of the day, I don't think without supporters board and SOS putting pressure on the club that things like this would happen. So huge credit to them and great to see as well. Also, you have to give the club some credit when they take that feedback on board and actually do something like this. So it's really good news.
Yeah, definitely a positive that's come out this morning. And I kind of lied a little bit when I said I won't be touching too much on yesterday's game anymore, because there is a couple of players I wanted to talk about that have been heavily linked to Anfield in recent times and previously. I mean, linked to Liverpool that have been going for a long time, all the way back to Michael Edwards, first stint as sporting director. He scores a brilliant goal yesterday. We know about his release clause now, David, as well. Do you think there's anything in suggestions of Kuna being a Liverpool target at all?
Yeah, I think there possibly could be, just through watching as well, the way this Liverpool team plays football and the role of the centre forward, and the fact that consistently, whether it's been Diaz, Núñez, Jota, the centre forward has never really got shots. And Arne Slot used that phrase, didn't he, about needing a facilitator in that role. And you think that it's all about, it's so similar to the Jurgen Klopp team in terms of getting shots for the wingers, but the centre forward's all about linking up and bringing the play together. I mean, you look at maybe Jota's role around the first goal yesterday. He's just there to link up, isn't he? And you think someone like Cunha doing that, he is made for that sort of thing. He's a very kind of similar player, isn't he, to Firmino? I mean, whether he reaches that level or not, we'll have to see. But he's a fantastic player. And I mean, he's got that. He's 25 years old, very good age for Liverpool to sign someone. That's where they like to sign them. Got experience in the Premier League, got some goals behind him, and he's got that 60 million release clause there. We understand. So it would not shock me if that was someone that Liverpool would look at coming into this summer, because I just can't see a world unless Slot's just being a pragmatist and working with what he's got. It seems to me that it's a real feature of his teams or this team that he's built, that it's or put together, that his centre forward is there to drop in and link the play rather than get shots. And someone like Cunha, will be perfect for something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, that release clause around it's not small, but in terms of what centre forwards are being quoted, it's not the biggest amount at the same time either. So it'll be interesting to see. And the other player that I thought had a very, very good game yesterday, Ainori, a left back we've been linked with for some time. I know you mentioned him last summer as well. Would you think that is a player, Ainori, that Liverpool are still looking at potentially?
I thought he was very very impressive again yesterday in his use of the ball. Again, he's only 23 years old. There's some question marks, aren't there in terms of his defensive output. But I think that is always the stuff you can coach. The stuff you can't coach is what he can do going forward, his ability to link up with players and his dribbling skills. I really like him. And I wonder, because there's just a little bit less fuss around him than there is maybe a Milos Kerkez. And whether Liverpool will think, we could sneak this one under the radar, maybe it won't cost as much. Same upside in terms of age and quality are all there. So I know they've looked at him in the past. Whether that's still something that's ongoing, I'm not entirely sure. But I wouldn't be against Liverpool signing him, because I think he's a quality player and he showed it again.
Yeah, only a year left on his contract, apparently, although there's suggestion the club Wolves have an extra year. So maybe a lot cheaper, as you said, than Kerkez could well be an option. And the only final one, because transfer links are starting to root up. Sam Maguire had a story out that, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but Liverpool keeping a close eye on Warren Zaire-Emery, the PSG young midfielder who plays 8 and 6 at times for PSG in a double pivot. Heard anything on this player? Heard any mentions around the club at all with this one?
No, personally, not heard anything. But one reason I wouldn't kind of doubt this story. I mean, Sam's got some great stories recently, so I wouldn't doubt it on that basis. But also, I mean, you look at a player who's 18 years old. He's got, is he nearly 100 games for PSG behind him already in a decent European league? He's obviously an immense talent. I think the big question mark over this one is that surely they're not going to want to ever let him go if they can avoid it. I guess it's all about what he sees the plan is for him going forward, whether he thinks there are enough minutes, and then again, what can Liverpool offer in terms of that. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if they were in the mix if he was to leave. But that is a big kind of ask, really, in terms of PSG being able to let him leave. Then Liverpool maybe will come to the table. But you could say that about an awful lot of players, to be honest.
Yeah, very true. It's Liverpool have got designs for a lot of players. Whether they can get them is a completely different thing. And there is a comment there from Red Armchair Support, which links to this, because he said Aïnouri and Kuna will be good additions. In terms of Emery, he said couldn't see PSG letting him go unless they maybe got Ibu in return. And that's what I wanted to ask you, because Ibu's made comments recently, and not in a bad way, but people have jumped on them saying, very happy here, but it's flattering that I've been linked with the likes of PSG and other big clubs. It does feel, we know there's an offer on the table, and as he said, my agents are speaking about it. 3 big contracts to sort kind of has become 4 big contracts to sort. And we don't want Konate being another like the big 3 are next year, do we?
No, absolutely not. And obviously you want to tie down your best players when they're coming into the peak years, particularly when you put in a bit to developing and getting them there as well. And we've seen from Konate as well this season that he can have a better fitness record if he's looked after the right way. So, all the signs are really promising there. So Liverpool will be desperate to keep hold of him. But I find it interesting, these links, and he's being asked about them at a period where he is going through a contract renewal discussion, and that was deemed to be quite close relatively recently. So maybe it's just kind of nudging it over the line. But again, there's not a lot in that at the moment. I'm sure a lot of big clubs would be interested in him, but Liverpool's still got a relatively strong hand, and the emphasis will be on kind of getting him tied up to a new contract between now and the summer.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that one. Fingers crossed on all 4, truth be told. We'll see if there's any developments in the next week. No one's holding the breath the way things are going. And the final bit I really wanted to talk about, it is another huge week. On Wednesday, Liverpool will play Aston Villa away at Villa Park. In simple terms, they have to do better, don't they, realistically, than they did in this one?
Yeah, it's going to have to be a better performance, no doubts about that, because you're going away from home as well, and you probably get away with less. And Villa are very, very strong, aren't they? They're going to make it a physical game, so they're going to ask a lot of Liverpool. I think one major upside for these next 2 that is worth mentioning is that, quite unlike the Wolves game where they had a free week in the build-up and Liverpool were playing a midweek game, Villa have played at the weekend, playing into midweek, and the same will be true of Man City, playing in midweek, then into the weekend. So that's a real leveler, and I think that's massively helpful for Liverpool. Both sides have put a lot in, so that will make it easier. And on Villa as well, worth mentioning, the injuries are just piling up for them at the moment. I mean, Pau Torres likely to miss this one. I believe Kamara went off at the weekend. You'd be surprised if he was available for midweek off the back of that. They've got quite a few others missing as well. So, again, that makes Liverpool's task a little bit easier. But in that atmosphere, under the lights at Villa Park, it's always massively tricky. So it is going to be a difficult one. But I'm of the mindset that Liverpool have not played poorly very often at all this season. And I just think, there's been a couple of back-to-back performances there were a bit off in slightly different ways. Everton really poor in attack. Wolves just poor in giving up chances in the second half. But I just think coming into a big game like this, I just can't see them not, being anything but at the best and just ripping into this. And if they can get a win, it will be absolutely massive. So I'm hoping and hopeful that we will see the best version of Liverpool.
Yeah, Villa are just a different beast when Kamara plays. So not wishing ill on any player, but if he's out, we do see that as a positive. And in terms of us that we know, it seems pretty certain that Cody Gakpo won't be back. But Curtis Jones, obviously talking about midfield freshness, he is back. That suspension's finished for him now. People are naturally looking to this, David. Do you think there will be any, if much, rotation for this game at all?
It's a tough one, really, because how, if you're going to bring Jones in, who do you bring him in for? Well, I suppose it would possibly be Szoboszlai. I just don't think the manager's going to ever let McAllister come off the pitch because he's far too important to what Liverpool want to do. So, maybe there's an option there. Bring Jones in for Szoboszlai. Gives you a little bit more of the control than the running, and maybe that will be helpful. And maybe he's a candidate for one there. And in terms of other rotation, maybe look at left back. I thought it was a poor performance we've seen from Andy Robertson on the back of playing a few games in succession. I just don't think he's in the position to do that anymore. So I wouldn't be against seeing change at left back. But other than that, with Gakpo out, I think the team kind of almost picks itself, really, doesn't it? So it's you wouldn't mind a little bit more rotation in this period, but I also think the manager's going to want to get his best players on the pitch as frequently as possible in this run.
Yeah, fingers crossed to say that they're all available. And Arne Slot's press conference is tomorrow, so we'll get an update on any injuries and returnees. And I suppose with this one, it's easy to say, and we do say a lot of weeks, this is a massive game. But for the context of the league, this is Liverpool's chance to actually go a game ahead of Arsenal for the first time in a long time, and at the same time open up a 10 lead. I mean, if the lead does get to 10 points, touch wood, that does feel a big shift, doesn't it, if Liverpool win this game on Wednesday?
Yeah, there's just the mental aspect of being the game behind versus being a game in front. I just think it would absolutely kill Arsenal to be 10 points behind, or even with that game in hand. I just don't think it will be helpful to them. They've already got so much going against them in terms of the injuries and what they've got left squad wise. I just think if you can get 10 points ahead and you're going to have that game advantage for a few weeks, aren't you? Actually, I just think it's going to really, really impact on Arsenal. So it would be nice for that game in hand to be, for Liverpool to get the 3 points on board if they can in that game that they're going ahead. Which just makes this feel even bigger. And I also think, for confidence as well, going into the City game to win a big away game like Villa before it would be massive. So, yeah, just feels like there's an awful lot riding on this. But that's the nature of being in a title race. And I think people need to be a little bit more accepting of that as well, that they're going to be ups and downs. It's going to be difficult. They're not all fun games to watch either. And it's going to be a battle at times, but you'd rather be in Liverpool's position than anybody else, and I still make them, regardless of what happens this week, even if they lose the next two, I still feel like the massive favourites to go on and lift the title, to be honest. So I think people should be looking forward to these ones.
And you kind of mentioned it there. It is almost like Mastermind, where I started, I want to finish as well. That with everything the way it is, we saw a lot of reactions on social media like, we're in danger of blowing this. There's a risk. These next 3 games, Arsenal can close the gap, etc., etc. Is it not just natural that in a title race with 13 games or so left to go, that Liverpool will drop points somewhere unexpectedly? Arsenal will drop points somewhere unexpectedly. This is just the nature of a title race, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is it. I don't think Liverpool will win the 13 remaining games, that's for sure. But I also think they'll probably get more points than Arsenal do over their remaining 13 games. And they've also already got a humongous lead over them. 7 is a lot. You know, it's 3 games ahead, effectively. You've got to kind of think about it like that. You know, Liverpool would have to drop points in 3 or lose 3 consecutive games, and Arsenal would have to win 3 consecutive games to get themselves kind of a point ahead. And so, you know, you've got to kind of look at it like that. So some of the panic, you know, like I said, I kind of understand it in the ground, the feeling of anxiety at times, but I also think people need to kind of tone it down a little bit on social media, really, is the sheer panic around it. You would absolutely love to be in Liverpool's position, and Arsenal must be looking at it thinking, they didn't play well yesterday. They won anyway. It's 7 points. We still need them to lose 3. You know, just to catch up with them, and then we've got to be better than them beyond that. It's a huge ask, and particularly, you know, what you could say about yesterday was that Liverpool won and they didn't perform well in the second half. But I still, you know, but Arsenal won their game, and people are fretting about that. But Arsenal won their game, and they didn't play particularly well against Leicester, who were just as bad, or, you know, if not a worse side than Wolves. So, you know, what are we taking from this? Are we taking from this that Arsenal are going to battle their way through, or are we taking through that Liverpool will battle through? Or, you know, and I just think people have got to be aware of the fact as well that Arsenal have got this massive problem, which is no forwards, which is probably going to hurt them at some point between now and the end of the season. So in a few games, I would suggest really they're going to be games where they just struggle to get goals out that front line. So you'd just rather be Liverpool, and I think people need to be a bit calmer about it and a bit more reflective of that fact. And I think we'll see a bit of that over the coming games. Really, that, you know, just don't be massively concerned if there are drop points in the next couple, even if Arsenal win the next couple, because drop points are coming for them. And I still think Liverpool are a far better side, and they will still have an advantage. So just maybe need to be a little bit calmer about it, I think.
Yeah, as Red Rebellion saying there, we're still averaging 2.4 points in the Premier League. 7 of the remaining games are at home, which is 21 points, which I think takes us to 81. Probably means if you win all those, there's not too many left to go. And by the way, people, one of those is Arsenal coming to Anfield. So, yeah, it is all in our hands. We will see what this week at Villa Park brings at the same time as well. So, there we are. A lot to still be positive about performance, but we can move on quickly from that one. All it needs me to say as ever is David, for the time, the insight, and just the occasional rant. It is all appreciated.
Thanks very much for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters